When was the first time that you realized you mattered? Seriously, just take a second, think about it. Where were you? How old were you? What was happening? Chances are, if you can isolate a time or a moment, maybe not the first exactly, but a time, you might even get that nice, gooey, warm feeling in your heart. And more than likely, you also remember who was there. You felt the power of significance, the power of feeling important. And that power is dependent on other people. In short, we know we matter because of other people. And those around us know they matter because of us. This is the idea of mattering, and it's actually a science. So you might be thinking, like, what does that really mean? And also, what does that have to do with growing a community? Well, oftentimes, the task of growing a town, growing a community, making a community stronger, it's relegated to people with titles. Sometimes there are people that are in economic development or community development. And those fields are, they're nuanced and they're complex. And they've changed a lot over the years. There was a time when primarily the thing that economic development folks thought about was how do we attract the next big business? We still need those things in small communities for sure, but a lot of times it's a lot of infrastructure needs, it's a lot of workforce needs. The idea is that, bigger means bigger impact, right? Recently, in recent years, the shift has really gone towards quality of life. When people are looking to move to a community, they're thinking about what does it feel like to live there? It's a vibe check, if you will. And so today we're going to look at the science of mattering and what it has to do with growing a community. And the cool part is, these are things every single one of us can do. If we want to grow our communities, we need to remind people that they matter. We need to make it personal. So I'm from Oaks, North Dakota. It's a town of 1,800 people, southeast corner of the state. I would be completely remiss if I didn't give a lovely shout out to all my friends and family in Oaks, North Dakota, as I stand on this little red dot. And I'm going to share with you 3 ways that making it personal in your community can benefit you, just like it has for us. One of the things it can help you do is it can help you grow small businesses. The second is it can help you fund cool projects or community ideas. And the third is it can help you attract tourism or enhance tourism. So in 2022, I was eating lunch. It was actually lunch, not dinner. That's a farm girl thing right there. Oh my goodness. At Birnbaum's in Fargo, North Dakota. This is Birnbaum's. Yeah, little clap for Birnbaum's. It's a great restaurant, really eclectic, stellar food. And I was chatting up the lady at the cash register, and out of the kitchen walks this young woman. She walks straight up to me, and she said, "Are you Rebecca Undem?" And so North Dakota's a small state. That's not uncommon exactly, but since I really didn't know her, I was definitely a little taken off guard, and I was a little hesitant, like, maybe, So I said, yeah, I am, and she said, "I'm Brittany Hardy, and I'm from Oaks." And as soon as her name hit my ears, I knew exactly who she was. And I said, "Well, I am super excited to meet you." So about 3 years earlier, I was the Chamber of Commerce president, and our economic developer at that time had told me about Brittany. I was gone from our community for about a decade, so I didn't know Brittany at all. But Brittany had graduated from culinary arts school. She was a chef, and she's standing in front of me. So I said, "Hey, Brittany, I've kind of a cool idea for you. Would you be open to a Zoom call with me?" And, as uncomfortable as I was when she asked me if I was Rebecca Undem, she looked at me like, maybe, and she said sure. And so she agreed. I went home, and immediately the next day, I walked into the bank and I knocked on Steve's door. Steve is the banker who owned the bakery on Main Street. He had reinvested a lot of money about 3 years earlier, and he hadn't had a tenant in this beautifully renovated space for like 3 years. And I said, "Steve, I think I've got a lead." And so we were talking about it a bit, and he wrote on a Post-it note, and he slid it across the desk. And on the Post-it note was the bottom line offer that he would make to this person if I continued to work with her and if we closed by the end of the year. So the next picture here is me and Brittany on March 14th, 2023, on the opening day of her bakery. She always looks like that still. It's been a really rough ride for her. She always makes that face. But I want you to really think about this. You might be thinking about this like, oh, cool. I wish we had talent that we could just recruit home. And I'm standing here to ask you today, what if you do? And what would it look like if you personally reached out to these people and invited them home? Think of all the people that have graduated from your respective schools. Think of the talents they have. Look at the things you need. I didn't know Brittany, but I knew Brittany had a talent, and I knew it was a talent that was a match for our community. And I told her that. I looked right at her and I said, we need you. We would love to have you home. And I actually personally said to her, I will move mountains for you. And she came home. So it's not even just graduates. Think about the businesses that you love. If you love to frequent them, what harm would it do to tell them that you love their business, you would love them to consider, pop-up shops are a thing, friends. What if we ask them, invite them? Talent matters. And feeling like we matters. Personally invite the talent that you need in your community. The second thing that it can help you do is to fund cool projects. So, like a lot of main streets in America, in small towns, we had this, I'm going to call it deactivated space on Main Street. It wasn't an eyesore. It had grass planted, but it hadn't had anything on it of any sort of vibrancy or life since 1981. Okay, it had been a few years. And a national grant had come up, and this little park is right across the street from my building on Main Street. And I would look outside and I would stare at it, and I just felt like this space was begging for somebody to love it back to life or to do something with it. So this national grant had come up. I went to our chamber director who offices with me, and I said, I think we should apply for this grant and then see what we can make happen. So this plan that's on the slide here was designed by our local landscape architect. We sat down with him and we just said, if we could put everything in this park that we want to see, what would it look like? And this is it. So we priced it all out. If we had to pay for every single material, every single hour of labor, you do the worst case scenario on grant applications, just in case you guys didn't know, and also pay the private owner for the lot. We were looking at about $200,000. That's a lot for a cute little pocket park. At the same time, in my town of 1,800 people, our volunteer fire department was building a new fire hall, to the tune of $1.4 million. Our Catholic Church was also doing a large-scale renovation of their fellowship hall, raising money in the community north of $1 million. In a town of 1,800 people, you absolutely might think there's not enough money to go around. This is a terrible time to start raising money for something like this. And if we had sent out a form letter to everybody on Main Street, we probably would have believed that. But that's not what we did. So speaking of personal connections, I reached out to a person that I know and love. His name is Patrick Kirby. He is the founder of Do Good Better Consulting in West Fargo, and he helps people raise money. So I told him about this idea. We didn't get the grant, by the way. It just kicked off this process. And I reached out to Patrick, and he was like, I'm in. Let's do it. There was 13 of us. It was me, our chamber director, and 11 board members. The Chamber of Commerce was taking this project on. The first thing Patrick had us do was sit down as a group, 13 of us, and brainstorm a list of people that have historically supported things in Oaks. Love Oaks, give to stuff in Oaks. It took 10 minutes. We had 40 names. No businesses, just individual humans that love our community. The next thing he had us do was he asked each of us to consider why we wanted to see this thing happen. When we think about this thing being done, what are we doing there? Who are we there with? How does it make us feel? All that gooey, juicy goodness, right? That gets you feeling something. I can't tell you enough how important that piece is, the vision casting. With 13 people from different ages, some were grandparents, right? Some were younger with like fresh kids. We had this rich set of reasons why a park like this needs to happen in our town. Then the third thing we did, this all happened in under an hour. We divvied up this list of 40 people by saying who knows these humans well enough that you would sit down with them and invite them to be a part of this. Every single conversation, personal conversations, face-to-face conversations, it led us to something. It led us to either money for the park, which obviously, come on, that's the goal, guys. It was money for the park. But we found people that wanted to be involved, or we got feedback from people. Things we could do to make the idea better, just process improvement. Bottom line is, every single conversation, we learned. What we ended up finding was there was a young man, that's Rhett Miller in the middle. This picture was taken last summer. This is the groundbreaking. Rhett Miller chose to do that large paver patio as his Eagle Scout project for Boy Scouts. The next picture shows you what the completed paver patio looked like. Isn't that rad? I know. That was done last summer. He did it by his 18th birthday. Since that, and also, by the way, just for scale, in about 4 months, we raised $90,000 in 24 conversations. And besides Rhett, so all of that labor was volunteered, right? Remember I said our volunteer fire department, they were raising money for their own fire hall? They were so inspired by the fact that we were doing this, they volunteered all their manpower. And then a tradesperson came along and said, I'll put on all the electrical. And then 3 Girl Scouts came along. So this summer, we are on track to finish that park. Each of the 3 of those girls are taking on separate projects. And this isn't just it's a super neat project. Let's be real, it's super fun. And by the way, you're all personally invited to come and see this thing at the end of the summer. But it's about mattering. The people that we talked to gave us money. The people that volunteered their time gave that to us because we personally asked them to be a part of it with us. They felt a sense of significance and connection to what we were asking them to help us do. No form letter ever did the same. So the next time you're thinking we have this cool thing we want to do, instead of going straight to grants, we did the same, right? But just don't stop there is all I'm saying. Or sending form letters. Remember this, giving is personal. You have to personally invite the champions to come along and help you build your dreams. Okay, there's a third thing. This making it personal can help you attract visitors. And I say visitors because Oaks, North Dakota has no natural landmarks. Unless you're a hunter or a fisher person, there'd be very little reason for you to choose Oaks for tourism. And so I like to think of tourism more as visitorship. And guess what, friends? Visitors are just humans, and those humans also make decisions based on feeling significant. So I got this call from my friend Christy. You can show the next slide. I got a call from my friend Christy. She called me, she lives in Fargo, and she said, Rebecca, me and 2 of my girlfriends are coming to do a girls' weekend in Oaks. And I kind of laughed. So I had invited Christy and her friend Allison that were both in Fargo. I had invited them down to Oaks several times. They loved Oaks. But I said, you're doing a girls' weekend here. She said, yeah. And I said, why? Why Oaks? Why, she said, well, let me tell you. So this is how they started. They started with Nashville. And the decision was just like, oh, with, the price of flights and the price of drinks, like, let's just dial that back. Then it was Minneapolis. They just said, it's still too far. Sioux Falls, they're like, yeah, it still just feels too hustly. And then it was Danielle from South Dakota, who had never been to Oaks, said, why don't we go to Oaks? And so Christy was calling me to get recommendations on where to stay, what to do if there's anything going on. These girls picked our town out of Nashville, Minneapolis, and Sioux Falls because they had visited us before and they loved it there. We made them feel important. And again, going back to the other methods that are out there, there's no marketing campaign, there's no slick brochure that can have the same impact as personally inviting people. People will visit your small town if you personally invite them to. So the next time you have some sort of an event going on, think about your friends, your family that don't live in your town, and pick up the phone and say, hey, this thing's going on. You would love it. Make it about them. So I've shared a few. These are anecdotes. I get it. But the science is behind this too. And in fact, it was a psychology professor who wrote a book called The Psychology of Mattering, Understanding the Human Need to Be Significant. And in his research, he even developed an anti-mattering scale to try and measure the extreme impact on us as humans when we don't feel like we matter to anybody. Mental health is a huge challenge still in our rural communities. And what if the science of mattering could help us address some of those concerns? What if every single one of us, when we walked out of here today, we focused on these three things? Just really seeing people, inviting them to be a part of things that you know that they might love. And the third piece is just giving them that feeling of being relied upon, that they're needed, that they matter. It's a human basic need. So as we think, and we leave here today and we think about growing our towns, I hope you will think about the value of making it personal. The next time someone looks at you and says, settle down. I might hear that sometimes. Settle down. It's just business. It isn't personal. I hope you look them in the eye. You can smile at them. And with love and with grace, remind them everything is personal. Because when it comes to human beings, it actually is. Thank you.